This is the Bears Barroom Radio Network. The following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Radio is scripted now. We just come up with it. We don't use computers. We don't rehearse. We're going to talk about this next. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the Bulls. And then we're going to have Brad Biggs on. And then we're going to have all the... No. We're going to have... If you don't know what you're going to talk about in the top of your head before a show, you shouldn't be in the business. I don't know what you got. I feel like Vince Vaughn in a couple's retreat. The Sharks are circling. Old school, baby!
You're listening to the Mike North Advantage, and it begins right now.
That's right. The Mike North Advantage starts right now. I am Aldo Gandia, Mike's wingman, and the coronavirus has halted worldwide sports events. Everything is done. Even the Olympics have been canceled. But not the Mike North Advantage. No. We are here to entertain. We're going to talk sports, movies. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about it. And we're going to do it with my friend, Mike North. How are you, my friend?
Oh, my God, you don't know when you're going to see each other again. You're talking more by phone, Aldo. You and I have been going at this for a couple of years now. We understand that the need for entertainment's important. And you know what? I've talked to some people that I hadn't talked to for a while of late as not, almost like an excuse that you really do care about them. You know, people maybe you haven't seen, people you might have had a falling out with, people that basically you hadn't just talked to for a long time because you forgot about it or forgot about them because you've been moving on with your life. And then you have your family members, and then you have your friends and your people that you do business with, people that I'm like more than one thing with, friends and business people, like with me and you and me and other people in the business and you and other people in the business. So it's been somewhat of a negative, more or less, but there have been some positives, and that's what I hope to talk about today with you, because you were in the media and still am in the media for a long time, but in the mainstream. And I was in a different type of situation, which wasn't as exactly mainstream at the beginning of the tenure. Who knows as it grew? I've never been mainstream, but I've been sort of like maybe a representative of a certain block of people, I always thought. So it's interesting to see who's making the decisions, how the decisions are being made. Are they being made because of sales? Are they being made because of what makes one show go on, one show not? Who's doing it? Why would they do it and stuff like that? And it's universal right now that I think they're all talking about one thing, but they are making changes as of late in how they're going to do it.
Yeah, and in particular, over at ESPN, your home ground, there's news there. You want to share that with the audience?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to have a pause on the odds couple. There's going to be a pause on the baseball show. There's going to be a pause on the hockey show. The situation with our show is they have it at a certain niche with certain, other things that are like advertisers and everything else. We got some great people. And you know what? I have no problem with that. Everybody stated in the conversation what they thought, and you know what? I have no issue with it. It's a 1 hour a week show. There's people that need to be more informed and paid are getting paid for that do shows every day. A lot of advertisers, right now are taking a pause also. So I have no issue with that, and I don't want to even talk about that aspect of my career because I've gotten everything. So I'm not going to feel sorry for myself or say it's good, bad, or indifferent when indeed there are people being laid off in this country hundreds at a time. So it's all good, and we'll see what happens down the line. But they said, let's take a pause, and that's fine. They said, we'll be back, and that's fine. So you know what? I'm all good with it. Plus, this is a dead time of year, for that type of show, so to speak, although we would have been talking maybe futures or something. But you're seeing the struggles that sports stations especially are having right now with just the stuff that they have. The gambling stuff, Aldo, to be honest with you, there's nothing out there. Right. So you know what? I have no issue with it.
Yeah, you can't place a bet on anything. There's nothing
No.
going on. So
No, I think at the end of the day, when you stop and think about it, and you stop and take a step back, and you say, what is the plan for this show? I think you've got to respect the people that have run. Now, I was hired by Disney, okay? And we'll talk about certain differences in everybody's personality and style. But that now this show is with the new group, Good Karma, and you know what? You got to respect what direction they want to go in, because they're on the line. They just, and I respect that totally.
Absolutely. That's a huge investment on their part. And
yes.
They've got to, stay afloat. And now it's hard for businesses to stay afloat. And it's great that the $2 trillion stimulus package has been passed by Washington, D.C. I don't have all the details, but some companies are going to be helped, and that should help stimulate the economy. And hopefully this virus is controlled sooner rather than later.
I think that if you own what's perceived to be a big company, or, like if you have a smaller group of people invested in a company like this group, and they're really go-getters, but nobody saw this coming, I think, like, for people that want to argue about a Boeing going down, my argument is about giving them some help. Here's my only thing I would tell them. I don't want to see a big bonus given to any leadership of any company I'm helping out for the next 10 years.
That's right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And if you do that, there's going to be a problem. But I'm going to help you now, because Boeing has 163,000 people that work for them. So that's going to only hurt the little guy, all the people that need to go out and buy and go to the bars and everything else. If you lose Boeing, you lose 163,000. The cruise ship industry, if you lose the cruise ship industry, that's 300,000 worldwide. 300,000 jobs that would be gone. So you got to help them. You're not really bailing them out. You're bailing everybody out, because if there's no money to spend, let's say we don't get back soon, and in 6 months we come back, how much money is there going to be to spend anyway? So you got to do whatever you can, and we're going to get out of this. I don't think it's going to take that long. Things have changed on a daily basis. So whatever you thought good, bad, or indifferent 4 months ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 3 days ago, or 3 hours ago, changes on a constant basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Changes are constantly happening. And you mentioned the cruise industry, and there are tons and tons of jobs in some parts of, like, Florida. The economy is heavily reliant on the cruise industry, but at the same time, I'm reading in Forbes.com that a lot of these cruise companies have incorporated outside of the United States so that they can pay lower taxes, and so now they're going to get these tax breaks.
I agree with you.
And so,
I agree with you.
We've got to be careful who we're giving these tax breaks to, because they have to be paying into the system in order to get a tax break, right?
Yeah, and I'm with you. And believe me when I tell you this, I don't care if you think the guy's doing a good job or not. He's holding countries accountable at certain points. So if he finds out, and when he finds out that the cruise ship industry is doing that, that's his maybe way to get them to come to the United States and start basing most of your operations out of here. I'm with you 100% on that. This is no time for bickering on either side. I think, Aldo and I basically, when I talk to him, folks, he's an independent, and so am I. Because sometimes I take stances that Bernie Sanders would only take. Like, what about the landlords? Which I'm now thinking Mark Cuban's got the right idea. Let people write checks out. Let people write checks out as they would any other month. But you got to hold on to the checks and can't cash them.
Yeah.
Until they're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's my idea. That's my idea. That's Bernie. I like that idea. I like what Mark Cuban said. I'm with Bernie Sanders. And then I got people that think they're liberals saying, what about the landlord? He's got a mortgage to pay at the bank. Yeah, but the guy that's renting a storefront has not only the bank loan he's got to pay on the business, but the rent he's got to pay the landlord.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You can see it from lots of different points of view, and sometimes
I try to hit all the angles, man.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
I'm not letting. I don't want these big companies. But let me tell you something. If Disneyland went under, if ESPN, here, I'll give you a better one.
Right.
We miss ESPN. I don't care what anybody says, because ESPN gave us sports that made us crazier than we were about sports.
Yep.
Okay?
That's right.
If they were ready to go down and people would try to say they're non-essential, then that would open up news organizations that people would view as non-essential. I believe that there's so many guys whose temperament has changed, and some women too, people in general, whose temperaments have changed and whose weight will be gained, because I'll tell you this right now, I've eaten more in the last 4 days, because when sporting events, I've eaten more. I feel like, are you kidding me? Where's the shovel? Why is the spoon so small? Why am I only eating a pint of ice cream? Where's a gallon of ice cream? Okay? Because you know what's happened to me? I'm not going to be working as much. And when I watch sports on TV, because I gambled on a lot of them, I never ate.
Yeah.
I never ate, and that took up a huge chunk of my time. And then I worked out.
Yeah, right.
So I'm telling you right now, Aldo, I think I'm just trying to watch my intake right now, because we're going to see people we'll walk right by them. We won't recognize them if this thing goes on for a long time. They'll be like 30 pounds heavier. I
heard you on ESPN the other day say that after this thing is over, diabetes is going to go up because you're not.
No, my deal is this, like the president said yesterday. You got to get people back to work soon, because, for instance, it's going to be the cure is going to be as bad. Suicide's definitely. If you've never been, look, if you've ever faced life without money, folks, all I'm going to tell you is this: take it from a guy who grew up in one. Okay? It's tough. Yep. And you know what? Mentally tough people can make it through. People with other illnesses or other pressures toiling up on them, mental illness, it's tough.
Yep.
And there's going to be a uptick in suicides. I think that's unmistakable unless people get back, because there's already a ton of them.
Yeah.
Dating back 20, 30 years from wars and everything else.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm just trying to find some common sense. And here's another thing. When I was drafted in 1970, I think it was, there was a chance I was going to go to Vietnam. But at least I could make plans and know what was going to happen. What's scaring people now is you don't see anything.
Right.
You don't see the enemy, and some people are fine, some people aren't. And you don't know where you picked it up. You don't know if you went to this building, if you went to that building. I see where they're blaming Rand Paul, I think.
Right.
Other Republicans. Then I see where other Republicans are testing positive. So Rand Paul was with them, and they're just going to blame him and not maybe the 50 other places that they might have stopped in the past 3 weeks. Come on.
Yeah, but I got to say, that was a bad move by Dr. Rand Paul. He is a doctor, and so he...
Well, that does put a complication into things, doesn't it?
He goes in to get a test, and then while he's awaiting the results, he goes swimming in the Capitol Hill swimming pool, and then he goes to lunch with us, and while he's waiting for the results, you think he would have just quarantined himself for 24, 48 hours until he got the results.
That I agree with. That I agree with. All I'm saying is that he might have gotten this 2 weeks before, maybe on an airplane that was lingering around. You don't know.
Oh, sure.
But the blame game goes on in all circles when certain things happen. I just want everybody to know that, like if, let's say somebody gets it at a place you work, that doesn't mean you gave it to them, even if you test positive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
To be a carrier.
Absolutely. We all have to use common sense now and do what Dr. Fauci and all the other experts are recommending. The social distancing and the washing of the hands. By the way, they keep saying wash your hands, and sing happy birthday 2 times. That says, why not just count to 20? That's how long you're supposed to wash your hands for.
First of all, I don't know if you wash your hands, but you don't shower for 2 weeks. Is it still good?
No, I think you better shower.
If you wash your hands 25 times a day, but you haven't showered for 2 weeks. I'm just trying to say, I think you got to explain it to some people, because these are the same people that are buying toilet paper. I heard something good the other day. That one of the stores was selling 1 box of toilet paper for like $5 or something, and if you bought a second box, it was $100. So you weren't going to roll out with 2 boxes.
Oh, I see. Well, that kind of makes sense.
That's price gouging for a good thing, so that other people will have toilet paper left for no reason.
Yeah. Well, what was funny is my wife and I, it was a week or so ago, we went to Costco and we bought, a couple of packages of the big, toilet paper. And my wife is saying, man, I feel so guilty, buying, it was like 30 rolls of toilet paper. And I go, but we're buying it from my mom. You're buying it for your father. And we're buying it for us. That's 3 households we're buying for. So if anybody, looks at us and shuns about it, they don't know that, you're buying for more than one person. That's why.
Well, it just looks like you're just buying it for yourself, and
right.
That's understand. But if there's a box of like 200 rolls or something, I think one box would be sufficient. But everybody's thinking differently now. Everybody's thinking crazier or more sensible. Depends which spectrum you come from. Right. I've become more reasonable. Mm-hmm. Other people are becoming more agitated. Yeah. But I understand the situation. I understand the age. And I understand all that's going on, and I understand everything that's going on in TV and radio. I just think that there's so much misinformation going out there, and a lot of it's just one way, and that's worrisome. On either side.
It is. It really is worrisome. How do you think the television and radio industry is going to come out of this? Do you think there's going to be changes? I mean, we're seeing now lots of interviews done over Skype and over telephone and so forth. You think that there's going to be more of that even when the virus is dead and gone, and we're going to see a whittling down of the quality of television? Because,
But when they say the federal and local government, mm-hmm. whatever state you live in, mm-hmm. when you say they weren't ready, how can the media say that to anybody?
Yeah.
I mean, how can the media criticize the media, can criticize the president, his administration, Congress, Senate, blue, red, whoever wants to blame whoever. But the media telling the government you weren't ready for mass is the same media who has radio shows who still don't have a hookup from somebody's home. I put in a studio in 1994, mm-hmm. okay? And BB said to me, you want to put in a studio? Because there was none of this stuff they have now. And I wanted to put it in case I was sick, because I never wanted to miss a day. Because I was like, wow, I can't miss it. This is the time. This is my chance. If I start missing or whatever. Or if we're traveling and I'm by O'Hare, or if there's a snowstorm. Well, I put this studio and it cost me $12,000 in 1994. I had to put the board in. I had to put everything in. Mm-hmm. 3 mics. Mm-hmm. Buffon did shows from there. Jigs did shows from there. Dan Jiggets. Mm-hmm. We did shows from my house when we had to go to the airport because they were now Buffon. He liked coming over, okay, and doing some shows. And I said, well, Doug, I'm going to do the show from my house before I go to the airport. Well, I'll come by you and bring my luggage.
Oh, cool.
I started that in 94. Mm-hmm. Cost me $12,000. Mm-hmm. And you know that's expensive now. Oh. Now you wouldn't need it because all you need is what I got now right. with a lot of cases is, and we've used it too, is just a little hookup, you know.
Right.
And now we have computers and stuff where millions of people can do podcasts. Well, I had to pay, and I had the engineer from the Score, Greg Lane, put it in. So I was way ahead of the game. And when I was negotiating with Disney, with ESPN, mm-hmm. One of their main deals, especially locally, mm-hmm. was no matter how much you worked, you had to come to the studio. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, wait a minute. I said, first of all, I live way out here. Okay. And then they said, yeah, that's an issue, no doubt about that. If I'm only going to do one show a week, you know, and you're going to maybe down the line play an encore, should I have to come down as much as the guys that work every day? Not that I don't want to, but I had just relocated out here.
Right.
So in Huntley, which is a long drive.
Absolutely.
So, but the last 4 weeks, I've liked it because I like being around the people there. Mm-hmm. And Carmen's great, and everybody's great, and I enjoyed it. So we had a little board trouble for a couple weeks, and it wasn't on our end, thankfully, but you know what? It was having trouble getting rectified, so I had no trouble coming down for once a week either. But it took 9 months to negotiate that type of thing along with some other things like money and other deals. Okay? So you had to make sure, and they relaxed that rule for me. But I mean, there was no thing in place to start doing this unless maybe people were doing it without me knowing about it.
Right.
You know, at least at the time I was negotiating with them. Now maybe these guys are going to take a different approach.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned, the media not knowing, but it is the role of the media to challenge whoever the government figure is. It's the fourth estate. It's what the founding fathers set up. They want an adversarial media to keep government in check. And so when I hear people complaining, they're asking all these tough questions of the governor, of the president, or what. Well, that's their job. That's the job, is to challenge and make sure they're on their toes. So I don't
think people are questioning that they're being challenged. I think the people on both sides, Aldo, are being challenging the opposite opinion of saying you give too much of one way and not enough of another way. And I'll give you a perfect example. Me and Jiggets were never accused of that. We were never accused of that, because we came from two differing backgrounds with two different situations. And sometimes he sounded more like the guy that was from Edgewater, and I sounded more like the guy that was, not often, but was from that went to Harvard.
Yeah.
But then here's the deal.
Right.
Dan grew up in a domestic household in Long Island, not in a rich household. And I grew up in a below average, if you will, I'll say a lower middle class situation. I'm never going to say we were poor.
Right.
We never even knew that. So I think what people saw there was, and I know Dan and I had different political leanings and different ways we looked at sports and everything else. That's why it worked, because you didn't have to jump from station to station to get a different opinion to find out what is really right and what was really wrong. I mean, I told a program director 2 years ago, okay? He goes, if you could work with anybody, who would it be? Now, I'm not going to tell you who the names were, but I'll tell you who one of the names were. And the program director didn't hire me, okay, at the time. I said, Jamel Hill. And he looked at me like, after I named other people, he says, somebody you haven't worked with. I said, Jamel Hill. Because you're going to get both sides.
Absolutely.
And that's what made me successful. And that's what will make a radio station successful. And that's why when somebody goes, yeah, what do you think about this? And everybody goes, yeah, we agree. People know better on both sides. So that's why I've been able to last. Now, do I always last the way I want? Or the way that, as long as there's an audience out there, you know what? I'm not going to change my style, but if I was a program director, I would get opposite points of view on sports shows, entertainment shows, and political shows, all within the show.
Harp 4803 in the chat room says that you and Dan Jiggets were a tremendous team together, and it was because you guys were polar opposites, and in many different ways you guys were opposites. And the point that you make, that he was a Harvard guy and you didn't graduate from high school, you came from the school of hard knocks and so forth, that made it even more fascinating, that combination that the two of you shared.
How about this? I'll give you this. We went to meet somebody once, and they thought Jiggs was the dropout, and I was the Harvard guy.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know what? In the meantime, the mainstream media was busy calling me names. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So all I'm going to tell you is people have preconceived notions of every single genre. And you know this as well as I do. If you get a new boss, if you get a new person that you're working with, let's say somebody comes in to your bakery, and she worked at 2 bakeries before, but you hired her, but you heard bad things. Okay? There's some bakeries that will jump on something right away because of what they heard, instead of waiting a while to get a better gauge of how the person is with them.
Yep.
Instead of thinking and listening to other people that might have booted them out the door.
Yep.
That's how my style would be. So That's basically where everybody's different on how they run their media. See, on my Twitter handle, North to North, folks, it says the first thing it says, and you can look it up now. I believe it says media consultant.
Yes.
The very first thing.
Yes.
Because guess what I've been doing? Not only for some change once in a while, which is pretty good, but for years for friends that I've talked to. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't be stupid like I was. Don't be this. What should this station do? What should I do here? What should I do there? And I've given them my opinion. That doesn't mean they're going to listen.
Sure.
Sometimes I give it involuntarily.
Right.
But if you give it involuntarily, and even if somebody gets mad, or if somebody takes it graciously, if they hear it and some of it sticks, then you did what you had to do.
Yep. Q from Cincy says that he misses you and Andy Furman on the air together. He was a ardent listener of the two of you.
Yeah.
We'll have to have
you.
We'll have to have Andy back on because he was one of your.
Well, we're going to start doing that stuff too because he's got a. Andy and I had our old school, so we had the same opinion. You entertain. You don't rehearse before. When I came to the show, they said, "What do you want to talk about?" I said, "You plan the show. I'll be the second banana." And then Jonas Knox, I'll never forget it, said to me later on, "We thought because of your reputation." And I go, "What reputation?" "Well, you're Mike North and this and that." I go, "But what reputation?" And, well, that you'd probably want to be the number one guy. I go, "Are you kidding me? You guys, Andy and you, have been here forever. It didn't work because of another person. I'm taking that person's spot. Or that other person left, whatever it was. I'm taking his spot. I'll fit in." And guess what? It was magic. We had a great time. Lasted 3 years, and then when Fox TV started, incorporating with Fox, that's just a change of venue, the change of business strategy. That's what they decided to do. The one thing that they did do since then is be on Sirius, and we didn't even have that at the time.
Yeah.
Because of our type of talk. So I'm sure that being involved with the TV side, helped them get that also, which is good business.
Mike,
See, I'm more understandable than I was in 92. In 92, you know what I was saying? Listen to me.
Yeah.
Listen to me. I'm telling you, because they were music guys. And you know what? For the most part, Danny Lee listened to me. And he listened to what other people had to say. But we just did a 3-hour interview with him not long ago.
Right.
With Jeremy Morrison. And he basically said, "I didn't worry about you. Even when I brought up some of the bits and some of the controversial things, he never worried because he saw the station going upward and skyward. That was for the other guys below him to have to worry about."
And for those who don't know, Dan Lee was the owner of the radio stations that you worked at, WXRT, the Score Sports Radio, an icon in the radio industry.
Oh, and who nobody wants to talk about. He brought sports radio into the city after I suggested it to him. It's going to be in the movie Raging Mouth. And, I talked to Adam Rifkin. I mean, not Adam, Jeremy the other day. Adam Rifkin was supposed to get a hold of you or Jeremy this week, and I think Jeremy's still going to call you. But this is funny. They've closed down all production everywhere, and he was working on, I think Adam was working on a John Lennon a film.
Oh, wow.
And he's quarantined now.
Oh,
so it's happening out there, too.
Yeah, it's happening all over.
I got to make some decisions because my movie now, our movie is going to be pushed back a little bit.
Right.
Unless I start, and now the script's going to be done anyway by April 10th, which is good because you know what? It was a good call by me to say let's get it done and take certain publications out, which we'll talk about later.
Absolutely. Hey, want to talk a little sports?
Nah, I'm tired of talk weather. Of course, are you kidding me?
I wanted to ask you about a number of things in the NFL, and probably the lead story nowadays is Cam Newton. Is he going to be on a football team in 2020? He's now a free agent. He was released by the Carolina Panthers. He has no interested takers. I think a lot of teams are afraid to sign him because he's coming off that foot injury. He had that, what's it called, plantar fasciitis or whatever it is.
Fasciitis, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of teams, you can't do physicals with NFL players now, so do you think Cam Newton is going to hook up with a team that needs a quarterback, like perhaps the Chargers or perhaps the Patriots? So what are your thoughts on Cam Newton?
He's holding out for what? That's what he wants to find out. Now, he could have signed with the Bears maybe and accepted second, being on the bench or competing with Mitch Trubisky, but his ego got in the way there.
Mm-hmm.
He could have signed for what Nick Foles signed for, but he wasn't willing to, I believe, to relinquish his number one status in the National Football League, not in the Carolina Panther organization, in the NFL. If he starts accepting second man roles, if he starts accepting being the second quarterback on the team willingly, then he's already killed himself with some team that, even if there's one that hasn't come out yet, thinks he's a starter. Mm-hmm. But they're going to try to get him at his own price. So he's going to find out what price he's worth down the line. Believe me, folks. And it's not going to be worth what even Foles got. And if you're asking me what was my first impression, the first impression I had, because I didn't have time to think of it, because I always try to go off first reaction, I said, well, shit, why did we sign Foles for? Why did we just sign this guy?
Well, to be clear,
if
Foles was a trade. The Bears traded a fourth-round draft pick.
Why did we do that?
I'm sorry?
Why did we trade it?
What?
Why would you make a trade and keep your fourth and wait for one of these guys to fall through the cracks, unless Nick Foles is believed to be at his career better than Cam Newton is, and that's very possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's possible. And you know what? So I think that the NFL has people that get word around, that, hey, maybe this guy's more damaged than he is. He doesn't want to play through things. Who knows? He comes in late sometimes. I mean, there's a million things that they might do to her. And you know what? Somebody's going to get a pretty decent quarterback, and maybe the second stringer. You know what I mean, Al? So
right.
We'll see what happens. But, I mean, I'm not going to – if you want to question the Bears, question them on, okay, was it – when fourth-round picks are worth something nowadays, more than they used to be maybe, when you need a running back that you don't want to take number one because they're not as big as they used to be, like Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott,
right,
who clearly now we know were overpaid, then that fourth-round pick or that sixth-round pick, like for Jordan Howard, becomes handy. So that's the only thing I would question about the Bears. Not that they whether it came in a trade or not. Why did you make the trade at this point and wait for some other quarterbacks to fall off? I mean, I'm seeing where Brian Hoyer is going to be working probably before Cam Newton. So it's because Cam Newton's got an ego. Cam Newton's been a former MVP. Cam Newton's been some places that most of these quarterbacks haven't been. But is he the boxer now who broke his right hand?
Well, Cam's only been a free agent now for about 48 hours or so. Right. So we'll see, how long this holdout is going to be. But the odds are that it's going to be a lengthy one. Just, I think, again, because the NFL teams are not able to do physicals on these players, and because he's coming off of an injury, it's going to be tough for an NFL team to sign him to any kind of a deal without knowing how healthy he is. Now, he and his agent have been clever. They've been posting videos of his workouts and showing him working hard and so forth, but you haven't really seen any video of him running really hard up a hill. I posted this on Twitter the other day, Walter Payton going up the hill.
You rascal.
So
we have too much time in our hands. We've been actually doing some clever stuff. That was clever.
Yeah, so Newton is going to have to post some video of him climbing up Peyton Hill or something like that to prove to NFL owners that he's ready to go. But now, I got to ask you regarding the number one quarterback position for the Chicago Bears. We got Nick Foles, who has played for Matt Nagy, has played for the assistant coaches on this team. Clearly the Bears targeted Nick Foles because of his familiarity with the coaching staff and the offense that the Chicago Bears run. Do you think it's almost a foregone conclusion that Nick Foles is the number one quarterback quarterback, and Trubisky, who has a shoulder injury, and when camp starts, he may not even be able to practice 100%. Do you think Nick Foles almost has this number one position already locked up?
It's tough to sit a guy that shows that he can bounce back, and he did in certain games. He had no offensive line last year. His receivers, I love Allen Robinson. He had no running game. We've all agreed that it was Nagy's play calling early. So, you know what? Maybe that improved. I just think that it's still going to be wide open. We may not get to camp in time. There's time to heal. I mean, I already know this. I mean, the Boston Red Sox, Chris Sale, who just waited till the last minute to get Tommy John, now has more time after he gets Tommy John to, get himself together. So I still think that Trubisky started last year. I'm going to stick to my guns on this, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be right. When people say that, you know what, Mike, you're nuts, I'll say, well, I said Cutler shouldn't be signed. That's always the silencer. And you know what? But that doesn't mean I've been right about everything, because I've already discussed Allen Robinson.
Right.
But I was adamant about him. Mm-hmm. Let's just say that let's just wait and see. But to already pronounce Mitch Trubisky dead and to give him the job held, I think you'd even agree. Mitch Trubisky knows he's in more secure hands than that. I think that's what the guys that are like maybe Cam Newton was or Teddy Bridgewater were thinking.
Yeah.
The other way around. You know, if I get an injury or if I have to wait a little bit, am I going to be treated the same way as Trubisky would be treated if he wasn't injured or if he was injured?
Barrelissimo is in the chat room.
I love Barrelissimo.
And anytime you bring up the name Nick Foles, he vomits. He says, hell no, Trubisky's going to win this job. He is not.
Well, I think so, especially off of last year. Everybody's talking about Philadelphia for 2 years, or for when he was there. Why is everybody skipping Jacksonville? Oh, he played for this guy, he played for that guy. Well, wait a minute. Last year I watched him. I lost money on the guy. I saw the guy lay eggs and get replaced by the guy that looks like he's in Miami Vice, not once, but twice. Once from injury, and then once he was benched.
That's right.
So, I mean, come on. We're not talking about a guy here. Do you know in football, like I've said, you can lose it in 1 year. In baseball, if you're Cal Ripken, you can keep going and not see much diminish because of the nature of the sport. Or if you're Willie Mays, you don't start to lose it till your 18th, 19th, 20th year. And then it's not noticeable till you walk up to the plate one day and you're going, I'm 73 years old and my legs no longer can hold me. In football, if you get the injuries that Nick Foles has had like last year or the year before, and then he gets benched, that's 2 injuries. One's mental and one's physical.
Absolutely. And
so I don't think he's in. Believe me, he's got a lot to prove to Bear fans too. Why does Mitch have to prove something, and this guy won't have to?
Well, I think right now
I love when I have yet a loss for words on certain things. It's entertaining, it's engaging, and it's really, really cool.
I gotta tell you that I got a feeling that, well, this is what Brad Biggs said in the Chicago Tribune. So why would you trade for a guy who you're going to pay $20 million guaranteed, has a history with the coaching staff? Why are you going to and invest a 4th-round draft pick if he's not going to be your number one quarterback? So what Brad is saying is you make an investment like that on a quarterback, it's because their trust level in Mitch has fallen to the point where they're trading for a number one quarterback. And it's hard to argue with that, but what I would like to see is a true quarterback competition. If they're going to have a regular training camp and preseason, which God willing, we will get back to normal by then, I want to see that first preseason game. I want to see each quarterback play a quarter, and then the second preseason game, one quarterback plays a half, the other quarterback plays another half, and then by the third preseason game, you kind of know who's going to be the starter.
Let me ask you something then. I like your idea there.
Okay.
Another fabulous idea by Aldo Gandia, ladies and gentlemen, as the fans are cheering. What happens if both men are 20 for 28, and one guy's got it for 200 yards, one other guy's got it for 190, one guy threw 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, another guy threw 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Which way you going?
You got to go with Mitchell Trubisky because he's young. You got a huge investment in him in terms of draft capital. You already know what Nick Foles can do. The ceiling on Mitchell Trubisky is still undiscovered. We don't know how great he can be. So give him if he goes out there and he plays relatively well, he should be your number one starter game.
Can you look up Matt Flynn for me real quick, please?
Sure, Matt Flynn of the who went to the Seattle Seahawks from
look him up real quick because I want to see who replaced him. I don't really remember. And I understand.
I think it was a guy named Russell Wilson.
Okay, let me just destroy the Brad Biggs narrative, which I've been doing, and sometimes I help his narratives and agree with them. Brad is a very capable writer, but I've been destroying narratives since 1992, and that's why the mainstream media, when I destroy a narrative like, hey, that they were going to think of a week later, like, is Gronkowski going to play with Tampa Bay maybe? Well, from now on, if somebody brings that up, I'm the first. I didn't see nobody else bring it up and nobody respond, which means they may use it down the line in hopes that people forget that Mike North suggested it. Am I paranoid? Hell yeah, because I've had enough stuff stolen from me. I would ask you to tell everybody out there, wasn't Matt Flynn signed for a tremendous amount of money?
Oh, yeah.
And did they not look at Russell Wilson and say, I don't care how much we spent on Matt Flynn, and I don't care what the local writers say, we're playing the best player available. And Russell Wilson hasn't looked back, and Matt Flynn, they ate the money, and it was the right thing to do.
Yep, you got it right. It was in 2012, Matt Flynn, after one game where he threw 6 touchdown passes for the Green Bay Packers in relief of Aaron Rodgers, who sat out a game because the team was all going into the playoffs. He had a sensational game, and based on that game, and only that game, because he had not played it, he was given a 3-year, $20 million contract with $10 million guaranteed. He was announced the number one starter, and then all of a sudden in training camp and in preseason, Russell Wilson played better than him, and to Pete Carroll's credit, he said, hey, that's my quarterback, that young man.
That's why he's a winner.
Yep.
And you know what? Let me ask you, how much of a bonus did Foles sign for? $5 million?
Well, because I'm not sure what the bonus was, but he's getting.
Well, the bonus for Flynn was 10.
Right. Well, Foles is getting $20 million guaranteed. What he is getting from the Bears will be $20 million guaranteed.
So even if he doesn't play next year,
correct.
What happens if he gets cut?
If he gets cut, he still gets the guaranteed bucks. Yeah.
So if somebody picks him up, we don't know what happens then. They get out of the deal probably by saying, we'll pay you some of the salary. Here's what I do know. They gave Matt Flynn $10 million, and it took them 10 minutes to replace him because it's about winning over there.
Yeah.
And they put Russell Wilson in, and I know we made a mistake. Let's eat it. And look, it's indisputable that they ate the money, they made a mistake, they lived with the mistake, and so did Pete Carroll. And guess what? They did nothing but good things after that.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the bottom line. So, Brad could say what he wants. I could bring up more people that were signed by people. Look at what Scott Mitchell got for playing decent with Detroit. I mean, come on. Look at Drew Bledsoe. You look it up. They loved him in New England.
Yep.
Loved him.
Absolutely.
And guess what? Tom Brady walked in, and Drew Bledsoe owns a winery now. Period.
Yep. That's
so
right.
Brad could bring up all he wants because he's thinking like a Chicago Bear writer, not like a National Football League writer, which he is. Really, he's putting himself. If you look at the Bears, they've made decisions over who makes the most money. We saw it for 8 years with Cutler. They made decisions over money. Period. And they've done it in other positions in the past. They couldn't wait to get Neil Anderson in and retire Walter. And I know Walter I know this factually, folks. He had another year in him at least.
Mm-hmm. Now, another 2 years is what Tom Brady has signed with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He is now officially a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. What do you think Mr. Brady has left in that tank? And he met with the media yesterday, and he didn't want to answer any questions about his past. In fact, he didn't take any questions. He just talked about the future. He said he didn't want to look back. He wanted to look forward. What are your thoughts about Tom Brady as a Tampa Bay Buck? Do you think that's a good career move for him, and do you think he's got enough left on the tank? He certainly has offensive weapons around him, and he's got a very good offensive football coach in Bruce Arians. What are your expectations in 2020 for Tom Brady?
Well, first of all, it was a good thing for Tampa, okay? Mm-hmm. Regardless, it was good for Tom, okay? We'll find out if it was good for Tom, but $50 million is good for Tom. And he feels like, you know what, he also, people forget this, gave up a lot of his salary with New England so they could sign other players. He was a team-first guy. I've heard the Tampa Bay players saying they're jacked up. It's automatically made every player on that team more focused and better. It's selling tickets, and they're going by the Mike North method of media or radio, whether it's newspapers, radio, TV. When the newspapers were great, they had stars in them, like Royko, like Kupsinet, you know, like even Michael Sneed, Rob Veeder for the radio and TV people. Mm-hmm. You had destinations. Right. Tampa stopped being a destination because of two things. Their quarterback didn't do a good job for them, even though he threw a lot of touchdowns, he threw a lot of interceptions. And that's the number one thing, because Bruce Arians today, I saw him on an interview yesterday, smiling. But also, they needed a destination for television. They had fallen out of favor. They hadn't been big since they went to the Super Bowl with Gruden and those guys, and before that, Mike Allstott and Leroy Selman. So I think Brady made a great deal. He got courted. He liked their philosophy. They want to win now. And I think that came into play where he listened to other teams that said we're 2 years away.
Do you think that the New England Patriots are actually going to go the season with Jarrett Stidham as their number one quarterback? They have to be looking in the draft, and maybe they've got a lot of draft assets, and maybe they're going to look to trade up and grab a Tua Tagovailoa. I can't even pronounce his name, but the kid.
I wouldn't draft him just because I can't pronounce his name.
That's right.
To Jimmy Jones or something like that. I mean, I watched the Green Book, and they thought that Tony's name was too tough to Valenonga or whatever it is. So they wanted to change it to Tony Vale, and he said no. You know.
That's right.
So I think basically, look, I'm going to give New Orleans a pass, like Golden State's getting. I mean, Golden State's getting a pass. Nobody's saying that. Belichick. Everybody's going to say the Patriots suck now. It was Tom Brady, and it's not Belichick. Wait, you just lost Gronkowski last year and Brady this year. It's over.
Yep.
It's over, folks. It's done. And if Gronkowski was still on the team, it wouldn't be done. But then Brady leaving, it's really done. And Belichick, he's staying because he wants to come back and win within a certain amount of time, and I know he knows he's going to have to take his lumps for a couple of years. He took his plaudits for 20. So you know what? He knows what it's like to take a beating. I think in his career without the Patriots or something, he's under 500 for sure. So you know what? He knows how to take a beating, but he knows he's got lineage, and he knows he's got a resume second to none.
He has as they say, deposited a lot of money into that organization. So the 2 or 3 losing seasons that he's facing, his job is not at risk. The Kraft family loves him. No. He's going to rebuild this team. It's going to be interesting to see how he rebuilds it. If he's going to go a total rebuild and start with younger players, or is he going to acquire some veterans and try to continue that long winning streak? Now, the Buffalo Bills in that AFC East, they look like a team that's poised to take over that division and be the division leaders for the next several years. That's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on over the next few months to see what Belichick does with that New England franchise.
Well, you know what else? I agree with you on Buffalo. Here's the thing. You know how hard it is to be great and stay great?
Yeah.
Regardless of situations. That's what Brady did. He got him to the Super Bowl and won it 14 months ago. And a few months ago, if he doesn't lose to Miami, if they don't lose to Miami, they're the second seed. That's how great this guy is. Mm-hmm. Because he had no line, no wide receivers. His running game was subpar. He looked around. I should have been smart enough to know he's got the oldest team in football. They're not going to be good next year. He sees it more before anybody else does. He sees the work ethic of some guys. He sees some sloppiness. Let me get out of here and preserve my legacy and try to build a new legacy somewhere else. But the thing I liked is the beauty of it was he broke in with Kraft and Belichick. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they love him because they know everything he did. If you're on in another organization and you were there for a certain amount of time, and then you leave because there's new ownership, or there was new ownership a few years back, they don't have that same feeling for him that those guys have. They know what he did, and that's why he's like a son to them. He's not an employee. The head guy says he's like a son.
Yep.
That's all you need to know.
Yep. And you know what, Mike? I almost get that same feeling that the Bears organization has that kind of feeling towards Ryan Pace. I don't think that if this Chicago Bears team has a losing season again, and if they continue to stumble, I don't think that they will be quick to fire the general manager.
No, it'll be the coach.
Yeah, I think that Matt Nagy will be the fall guy for some reason.
I don't think they're going to get rid of him either. They stay too long with failures. Mm-hmm. In other words, I'm not saying he's going to be a failure, but if he is a failure, they'll stay 4 years longer. Just check most of the coaches they've had. Mm-hmm. Most of the coaches got off to good starts or proved themselves for a year, like Wannstedt, like Duran, who was coach of the year. So they bought time.
Yeah.
But basically, they keep people around for the most part too long until Trestman and Emery with Pace. I mean, with them cleaning house.
Right.
And they had to do it. That was just like Rip Torn and John Candy, running the Bears, Scully's catch of the day. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
when they raced in Summerrental with the floating restaurant, and they ended up winning, but that only happens in fiction.
Yeah. The other thing that I think has endeared Ryan Pace to the McCaskey family is the fact that he was the visionary in terms of remodeling Hallis Hall and taking a huge investment, $100 million, I think was the amount of money into updating Hallis Hall with state-of-the-art facilities and so forth. And that is something that McCaskey family is very proud of. And given that this is like only going into year 2 of that brand new facility, I don't think that they're going to get rid of the architect behind it, the brainstorm, the visionary behind it. I just think that Pace is going to be here for a long time, win or lose.
Well, remember, they were updating something that was new a long time ago, and other teams had passed them by. So for the free agent market, they had to do the updating, just like Northwestern. Mm-hmm. Updating doesn't mean you're going to be successful, for instance. Northwestern had to do what they're going to do because they updated it. Jim Phillips put in like $500 million into a beautiful practice facility where the field's right on the lake and everything. Mm-hmm. And if that snags you one basketball recruit that you thought you had no chance of, or couple football recruits that just fell in love with the city and everything else, and with Evanston and with the surroundings, and with that way, they got to compete with the Michigans, the Ohio States, which the name itself is tough enough to compete with. So they have to try every trick in the book and every comfort in the book to be on that same level, and that's what the Bears have done. And we'll see what happens with Ryan Pace. But if things start going south, they'll thank him for upgrading the facilities and them spending money, but I don't think they'll have a problem moving on. But it's just going to be a while, I think, before they do that. I mean, but by no stretch of the imagination is he Jim Finks yet, in my eyes. So we'll see what happens.
I gotcha. All right, I want to close the show by talking a little bit about movies. Everybody is missing sports, and so one thing you can do is watch some sports movies. So I'm going to name a few movie titles, and you tell me
Name me any movies.
You tell me if you've seen them and if you recommend them.
Drama, Shakespeare. I was watching Hamlet the other day.
Oh, no.
I was looking for a chainsaw. I just started going through the house, just ripping things apart.
Hamlet? Are you serious? You were watching Hamlet?
I was going. It wasn't even with Burton or with the other guy, with Larry Olivier. It was with somebody else. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
I wanted to, and I'm going. That's not bad. That's how things are troubled right now. And you know what? I want to say this: we don't have enough people making light of this a little bit.
Yeah, I
of this corona, because here I'm going to tell you who made light of it. They're all gone. Rickles, gone.
Oh, yeah.
Joan Rivers, gone.
Yep.
And Hugh Hefner used to throw some reality in it. He would have said, go grab a girlfriend. Let's go. Have some fun. There's none of that. It's like, it's day 29. Choppers flying overhead. Soldiers marching down the street. And you know what I'm saying? It's
Absolutely,
crazy.
yeah, it really is. All right.
I'm afraid to drive to see you. I'll get pulled over by all the state troopers.
They're all out.
Of them that are out there with no cars. You know what I was going to do? I'm going to paint a number on the side of my car and get a sticker. Get some stickers like NASCAR. Go for a ride.
That's right. You can do 120 miles an hour.
Hey, wasn't Richard Petty number 43? That's who I did it in honor of. Well, good. This is for a ticket for 110 miles an hour. Good luck to you. Thanks for donating to the state. All right, go ahead.
All right. Invincible with Mark Wahlberg, the story of the Philadelphia Eagles football player who was a walk-on and went on and achieved stardom as a special teams player, wide receiver for the Eagles. You seen it? And if so, did you like it?
Yeah, I've seen every sports movie for the most part, and in fact, The Raging Mouth is going to be taken from that movie, from the ground up type of story. And Rudy is the same type of movie, which I watched the other day, which is absolutely outstanding. Invincible, I've only seen 1.5 times. I saw it once. I know Vince Papale personally. I met him at the National Italian Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
We sat at the same table. Great guy. Much bigger than Wahlberg, about 6'3", better looking than Wahlberg, basically back in his day, and was a wrecking crew. Could take on anybody. Sandlot player par excellence out of Philadelphia.
Q from Cincy wants
Who's
to...
going to give you a damn description of that? Huh?
Absolutely. Now that Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert are gone, it's all up to you, brother.
Right. Well, you know what? I won't go see any foreign films. I won't go see subtitled films.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll go see anything that's silent, except silent movie with Burt Reynolds.
There you go. George in the chat room wants to know if you've seen the movie called The Tree of Life. And it's not a sports movie, let me tell you. It is a movie about torture because it's so boring. I've seen it, but it's...
Okay, then I'm going to take my buddy Aldo's take. He knows movies. I'm not going to see it.
Don't see it, please.
No.
Q from Cincy wants to know if you've seen Major League with Bertie Mac and who else was in that movie? Charlie
that was
Sheen.
Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes?
Major League.
That's right,
Yeah.
It was Wesley.
And Dennis Haysbert as
Look at this guy.
Serrano, Tom Berenger, Jim Gannon, who I interviewed a couple times on the radio, who played the manager. Great guy, passed away not too long ago.
That's right.
Of course, I've seen Major League 3-4 times. I just don't see the sequels to Major League. I just saw the first one.
Okay. Hart wants to know if you've seen Bang the Drum Slowly. I believe that's with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, Robert De Niro, this is off the top of my head. Michael Moriarty.
Yes.
About some Yankee teammates. I've seen half of it. I think it stinks. I think it sucks. And you know what? I think people that put it up there are looking for it because of the disease angle. I can't watch Dr. Kildare or Ben Casey back in the day because if I got a headache, I'd automatically have a brain tumor after watching those shows.
I hear you. Duke Martin wants to know if you've seen The Longest Yard. Now, there have been two versions of that. That's the version with Adam Sandler. That's the most recent one. And then the Burt Reynolds version back in the 70s. You seen any one
Saw
or
The
both?
Longest Yard at the movies 5 times. Saw The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds about 20 times.
Yes.
Saw The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler and Chris Rock for 20 minutes. That was it.
20 minutes was enough, huh?
What a terrible movie. You're trying to follow up a legend. Look it. And then it's good for a sequel. No, it wasn't. It was horrible, and I love Adam Sandler. I met Adam Sandler. He's a good guy. I saw Uncut Gems. It's okay. But I'm not going to just kiss ass because it's Adam Sandler. It stunk compared to Burt Reynolds' movie. Would you agree?
I have to agree. I mean,
My God.
the original with
Chris
Burt...
Rock, he thinks Chris Rock got to get over the movie star stuff. 'Cause he doesn't bring me to the movies like Eddie Murphy did. I don't care how successful he was.
Yeah, he is not a leading man. He is not your top guy. He's a supporting character. Adam Sandler has done well with him and giving him supporting roles, but he's never really been able to open a movie and be the top.
If Three's Company was a black sequel, he'd be the neighbor.
Get out of here.
Chris Rock would be the neighbor, and Eddie would be the guy, John Ritter.
Eddie Murphy would be John Ritter.
Oh my God! Come out with it now.
And Pam Grier would be one of the two girls, and who else?
No, Pam Grier would be the grandmother.
You're terrible.
But she'd still be a hot grandmother.
All right, tonight on Turner Classic Movies, you're like me. I like to turn on TCM. We've got Some Like It Hot with Tony Curtis, Jack Lemmon, and Marilyn Monroe. What are your thoughts?
I'm not the biggest fan.
Really?
You know. Tony Curtis does Cary Grant. I get it because he loved him, and he was in a movie with him, a Navy movie where Cary Grant plays a captain, Torpedo Run or something. He's got the English accent. Didn't even try to disguise it. Jack Lemmon's good. I like him at the vault. I like some of it, but when you hear Billy Wilder talk about it, there really was no huge story in it. Marilyn Monroe was late to the set every day. Lemmon didn't care at all. Tony Curtis hated her, was pissed. And, it made things a little bit tougher. It was a tough movie to make, but I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, if you ask me about 10 comedies, I'd watch 10 other comedies like Stripes, Easy Money. I mean, that's a nice movie, but it's a classic according to Hollywood standards, not by mine.
I got another question in the chat room. Down to Earth. It's a movie with Chris Rock, 2001. It's a comedy fantasy. I just looked it up. Amateur comedian Lance Burton, played by Chris Rock, finds himself at heaven's door. He is convinced there has been a mistake. Miraculously, he is...
Knock it off. It's like heaven can wait with Warren Beatty, okay?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Come on now. I mean, it's like a lot of other movies. I saw the original Bewitched the other day. I married a witch with 1943 with who was her name? Virginia Mayo? No, the other one. The screen siren, Veronica Lake.
Ah, nice.
Veronica Lake, and who was the guy that was John? Was it John Payne or was it Henry? Anyway, it was good, and it's the original Bewitched. It's about a guy that marries a witch and doesn't know it.
Wow, I did
they
not
had
know.
Special effects from the 1940s. 1943, 1944, 1945 stuff. I mean, come on.
I've always had this, not always, but for many years, I've had this idea of doing a movie with Chris Rock and Dennis Miller. They're both guys are running for president. Rock plays the liberal, Miller plays the conservative. They're throwing F-bombs all over the place. They're espousing their political views. They're having debates, and they're just opening up the doors. This was before Donald Trump, of became the plain-spoken, tell it like it is president. This was before that. Right. I think that would have been a star vehicle for both of those guys.
Well, you know what I would do with that? Mm-hmm. I'd make Chris Rock the Republican.
Yeah.
And Miller the liberal.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Sort of like Bulworth with Warren Beatty.
Yes.
When he's like crazy.
Nice twist.
Like you know what I mean? Make it. Not only are they one's black, one's white, but who would you expect to be in the certain parties? And then see what happens there with that. And then you have a couple wives. One's like and then you have. Wait a minute. Then you have Chris Rock married to a hot-looking white girl. Okay.
Yeah, I love it.
and you have the white guy married to a black girl.
That's it.
Okay.
We've got a movie. And
then the black girl is somebody that would be more glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
And the white girl would be somebody that would be more plain.
Yeah. See?
Just for the hell of it.
This is great.
Now start working on it. Get it on my desk. Like I explained to Eldo the other day, because I was telling Eldo about the movie. I said, Eldo, the reason, because he said, when's the script going to be done? And I said, well, it's going to be done by April, but it's taken longer because of fiction, like we were talking about Hughes.
Right.
That guy is a guy from 16 Candles. He could write, like you were telling me, he could write a script in 3 days.
Right.
Trumbo could write a script overnight or fix a script overnight. But when you're doing a biography or an autobiography, man, or if it's a documentary, it's tedious, man, because you got to get all the dates right unless you're just going to generalize.
There you go. Hey, final word before we go. Greg Braggs is in the chat room. I know you.
I love Greg.
I know you love Greg Braggs.
Yeah.
He hates black and white movies. What do you got to say to Greg?
I loved Raging Bull. It was in black and white.
Yeah.
I think that black and white movies, it depends what you're watching. Because they were going to do The Godfather in black and white.
Oh, really?
And I believe The Godfather would have been good in black and white or in color, but I'm glad they did it the way they did it. But black and white, Raging Bull, I think as it is now, if you did it in color, it wouldn't be as good.
Yep, I'm with you.
That's just my opinion. Because it's lighting, it's shadows.
Yes.
And Scorsese, you trust the guy to do it, and they were all for it. So, I mean, there's an argument to be made that The Irishman could have been made like in black and white, or Charlie Wilson's War.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Oh, great movie, Charlie Wilson's War. I saw that on Twitter that you watched it recently.
Oh, there's a guy that said, okay, let's have fun, you know?
Yep.
And let's just have the time of our lives and just do what I got to do and get things done.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
He sure did. Mike, always fun. We actually went through an hour, Mike. It feels like 5 minutes. We started talking 5
I could do
minutes.
it. An hour is an easy thing to do, and we just hope that everybody that's doing radio and TV that's got to go down to the stations and stuff, you know, just be careful and stuff like that, and try to get some other try. I don't know how you'd get something put in your home now if you need it from anybody that does it. I don't know how you would do it. I don't know if people could come over and get it done, but I think you'll see an uptick in that.
I hope so. I really hope so. I tell you what, I am refinancing the house because now you're getting interest rates that are the lowest in history, and so we're doing it over the telephone. It's called e-closing, something new, and we're like one of the first customers this mortgage company is doing it with. So that's what I'm off to do now. What are you going to do the rest of your day?
Well, I'm watching the John Wayne movie right now.
Nice.
As I'm talking to you with Maureen O'Hara. What else is new? I think they were in 8 movies together. I think the name of it is, if it's on, I just turned The Wings of Eagles.
Ah, okay. I've got
1957 against. He's about a guy, Frank Spigweed, who this isn't familiar to moviegoers. Is more concerned about his own ambition in life in the Navy than his family. You know what I mean? That's only been tried and true for every movie, but it's a true story of how the guy became one of the Navy's best aviators. Not a big one by John Wayne standards, but it's John Wayne in a suit and tie. And a lot of other things. I
got one for you this afternoon on Turner Classic Movies. McClintock with John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara, Patrick Wayne, John's son, and the beautiful Yvonne DiCarlo. That's a good Western.
Yvonne DiCarlo. And Earl Halleman.
Yes.
And don't forget, George Kennedy gets hit in the face with a rifle and doesn't even break his nose. He's in the next scene. It's a beautiful... that's how movies work. John Wayne movies. Let's cut. Beautiful. Let's move on. You know. So and later, and yesterday was Steve McQueen Day. They had like the Sand Pebbles. And they had Cincinnati Kid, and also him as a fat guy. One of his rare scene movies in 1978. When he went back to Tom Horn and to The Hunter, which was shot in Chicago, because it didn't work out that he could just be Steve McQueen. He was built on cool, and he wasn't cool in that movie.
Yeah, the great Steve McQueen. What an actor. All right, Mike, it's been fun. We will see you next week. Take care. I love you, brother.
Love you.